Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown. The three, steps back, crossover, puts up a three. Rebound James. Second. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Cleveland! This is for you!
Hey, Cavs fans. Welcome to another episode of the Block the Shot to Stop. I'm Kevin Lynch. This is Tim Daniel. We are a podcast presented by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Tim, we got him tonight.
Finally, we got him. After we've been waiting for this game since Thanksgiving, Kev. It's finally we got him back.
Yes. And who we're referring to, of course, is the Atlanta Hawks, who have been a thorn in the Cavs side, not only this season, beating them in back-to-back in November, but for the last several seasons. For whatever reason, they just seem to be a bad matchup for the Cavs, but not tonight. The Cavs controlled this game pretty much from the onset, and then really blew it open in the third quarter. I'm sure we'll get into that. So I guess I'll give it to you, Tim. Do you want to talk about that third quarter first? Do you want to talk about any particular player first? Where do you want to go?
Dude, let's start the third quarter because, I mean, realistically, this was a 10-point game after the first. Atlanta makes it a little interesting in the second. And then both sides of the ball, Cleveland was just awesome offensively and defensively. I thought Max Strus was fantastic in the third quarter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just hit some really, really big shots. The team overall obviously played great, but man, just the way that, like, when they put their foot on the gas and don't let up, it's just incredibly fun to watch.
It is. And that third quarter, particularly the, I guess, last 7 minutes of the third quarter.
Yeah.
Right? I wrote it down. The Hawks cut it to a 10-point lead with like 8 minutes or so to go in the quarter. And then that last 8 minutes, the Cavs blew the game open. The lead got up to as high as 28. It was 26 at the end of the third quarter, and then they just kind of coasted through the fourth quarter, pulled everybody with about 4 minutes left. And you're right. I thought a couple keys. I agree with you. That was one about Max Strus. I thought Max was great tonight. Not just scoring, he's just like kind of creating havoc and really going at, frankly, some more bigger athletic players that the Hawks have. And I thought he was really good. The other key I thought tonight, and especially in that third quarter, obviously it's nice to have Darius Garland back after a 1-game absence. Garland attacked the paint relentlessly tonight, to the tune of he had, I'll pull up his exact stats here. Sorry, I was looking at his shot chart, but he just got into the paint over and over again. I know he took 20 shots and only 6 3-pointers, which he's kind of a guy who's close to 50-50. He ended up with 26 points, 7 assists on very efficient shooting, and just over and over again got into the lane. And I thought, between him, Max Strus's overall effort and key plays, Max Strus I think he hit back-to-back threes right as they started to open up the lead. And I thought otherwise, Garland was just so fantastic. I mean, they had, because they were shading Dyson Daniels towards Mitchell, who still had a good game too. That left no one else that could keep up with Garland if you're going to put Daniels on Mitchell. And just thought Darius was continued his phenomenal play.
Yeah, I mean, main reason, we're talking about him being an all-star for a reason. And his games like tonight, you mentioned just extremely efficient, made just unbelievable plays. Literally, like, this isn't Tim and Kevin are going to bash Trae Young hour by any means, when we are keen of doing such a thing. But Trae Young's strength is certainly not defense, and Darius Garland is very well aware of that and took full advantage of it. Made him at times look like he was like spinning, and just made it like it was just awesome. Garland was great. There was a couple big plays there during that run that I want to talk about, both offensively and defensively. You mentioned just that last couple minutes. That like Mobley defensive rebound gets it to Mitchell. Him and Mitchell are running the pass break, and he hits Mobley for the running dunk. That was insane.
Yeah.
That's just like beautiful basketball right there by two guys who are amongst the best in the world, what they do. And then, because that no-look pass that Mitchell had, I probably could have given more credit. But then, Kevin, Sam Merrill blocked a DeAndre Hunter shot tonight. Sam Merrill.
Yeah, that was pretty wild, wasn't it? Yeah, good to have Sam back too. I mean, he kind of did a little bit of everything tonight. He didn't necessarily have a big game offensively, but he was definitely good to have him back. Actually, still missing 3 key guys just to get another guy in the rotation, as well as a couple guys who play less were really good last night. You still want the depth with Merrill, and I thought he was great tonight. And I screwed up what I wanted to say. I meant everything I said about Garland, but I meant to pair him and Ty Jerome together tonight because Ty did the exact same thing. Attacked the paint relentlessly. 20.6 assists for Ty, just absolutely fantastic. And I wrote down, like, between the two of them, they took 31 shots and only 8 of them were 3-pointers. And I'm fine. They're both very good 3-point shooters, especially Garland. So I have no problem with them shooting threes. But I liked the fact that they had a matchup advantage because Trae Young was usually guarding one of those 2 guys. And whoever he was guarding, they just blew by him and got to the paint and scored or set up a teammate. And I just thought it was a perfect game plan and perfectly executed.
Yeah, you could tell that not that they are the only team that does this by any means, but their game plan of just hunting Trae Young and putting him in a situation where he's got to make a decision between the 2 guards on the floor, whether it's Jerome and Garland, Jerome and Mitchell, Garland and Mitchell, was really kind of beneficial to them. Obviously, the fact that they're down a few guys like we talked about last night going to this game helps the Cavaliers in that end as well. But yeah, Ty Jerome, just, man, it's like he's got that spark back that we were so excited about.
And as you mentioned, Trae Young, I truly believe he is a great example of this. But with a lot of players, if you attack them defensively and kind of take advantage of their defensive deficiencies, it can affect them on the offensive end too.
For sure.
Right. And because Trae had a rough game, 5 of 16, had 10 assists, which is actually still below his average. But, I really think one can feed into the other with these star players who aren't exactly like two-way players, meaning they're really going offense and defense. They're more of a specialist on one side of the ball. Like, and frankly, that's what Trae is. He's an offensive specialist.
Right.
The fact that you take advantage of him on the defensive end can just throw off his rhythm to have a good offensive game. So, it was just really, I mean, other guys played really well too, who will highlight, but I thought Garland and Ty Jerome set the tone tonight with just aggressively getting into the paint and scoring or setting up a teammate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned Strus. I thought his play tonight was terrific. I know we're going to go down the list, just kind of do our highlights of players like we normally do. But we're going to probably cut it tonight because everyone did something really great tonight. I mean, Jared Allen only had 9 points, but he was still really good tonight.
He controlled the paint.
Yeah, for sure. And then Mobley and Mitchell, they're going to do their thing. Our fan favorite now, Jalen Tyson. Every time we talk about him, people are excited that we talk about him. So there's a lot to get to.
Yeah, no, we can start there with Jalen Tyson. Jalen is finding a way to contribute using his strengths.
Yeah.
Like, and this is no knock. He's still a little bit raw, like just with straight skills as far as like offensive skills. As far as trying to put the ball on the floor and go past people and everything, but he's super athletic. He's very good defensively. He's finding areas to cut to the basket and get some like dunks. He threw in 5 rebounds tonight and along with 15 points and in only 16 minutes played. So I think it's one of the best things we can do in life is focus on the things you do well instead of focus on the things you don't do well. So Jalen's not like he's playing within himself and turning into being a real contributor, which is so key with the Cavs being shorthanded for the last couple weeks now.
Yeah, his talent eventually was just going to blossom, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we knew he was good. I thought he was a steal where they got him in that draft, and I know that draft is not necessarily the Victor Wembanyama draft by any means, but it's still, you got to earn your time. And obviously, the fact that Cavs had this incredibly good regular season, it was hard for him to find a spot where he could get comfortable. I think his time in this play with the Charge has really helped him out a lot. And you're starting to see like all those skills he's developing and just being around the staff tonight really kind of coming through in full effect. Not just like you mentioned, I mean, his greatest skill set really is, and this is not a knock on anything he does as a basketball player, because he's a very good basketball player, but I think his greatest skill for this team is his energy.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when he is in the game, there's just something that pops up a little more. Maybe it's the physicality, it's the fighting for balls. I mean, in the fourth quarter tonight, the game's over with, and he's still running balls down. They're about to go out of bounds, throwing off Hawks players to give Cavs the possession. That's the kind of dude you want on your team, where it's like, look, we know we can't give you the minutes that other teams are giving you, but when you are here, like, we know you're going to earn them. And I think he's definitely earned a shot that even when they're healthy, I don't know how they're going to fit him in, but he's making it hard for them to bench him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was thinking like his energy and his athleticism, and first and foremost, like Jalen deserves the credit because he's, as you said, much more comfortable now, playing better and everything. But give a very small percentage of the credit to this coaching staff, because I'm sure they were drilling into him like, we know you're going to be a much better player and there's a bunch of things you're going to be able to do on an NBA court. What we need from you right now this season is to, as you said, use your energy, use your physicality, use your athleticism, make an impact on defense, on the boards, things like that. And I think maybe they've learned Jalen a little bit over the past couple months, and now that he's getting another chance in the rotation, they're putting him in better spots to succeed.
Yeah, you're much better at words than I am, apparently, because that's what I was trying to say. You just said it much more fluid. So yeah, absolutely. Shout out Jalen Tyson. I thought he was awesome again tonight. Had his best shooting game so far of his young career. Side note: do you ever find it like kind of goofy when people talk about like rookies, like when they do things like they had their career highs, and I'm like, yeah, they played like 30 games. Like, I hope, let's calm down. Let's wait till next year.
Yeah, I think you can wait until at least their sophomore season to start talking about career highs.
Yeah, just a weird nitpick I have of basketball media.
Yeah. No, but like tonight, like these last two games in particular feel like the Cavs of the first 2.5 months of the season instead of the Cavs of the last 3 weeks. And obviously it's a great thing. It feels like they are finding their stride a little bit, and to like last night take care of business and have so many guys step up in a game where they're out without 5 key members. And then you go on a back-to-back tonight, still shorthanded against a team that has given you troubles for the last like 3+ seasons. And you blow open the game and you're up 30 at one point and cruise to a 20-point victory. This is exactly the type of play and the type of outcomes the Cavs were getting for that first 2.5 months. And it's just super exciting that they're kind of turning the corner and getting back to that.
Yeah, I know that I don't know if I'm alone or not, but that play-in game that they lost to the Hawks and be eliminated from the playoffs in 21 still kind of sticks with me. So I still really enjoy when they get a chance to beat the Hawks. Obviously this year sticks with me as well, but yeah, I think this was kind of like you said, this is the Cleveland Cavaliers that we were like, oh, this team is legit and for real. And you're seeing these little glimpses again. You said last night that you thought it was the one you felt the best about since the OKC win. I think tonight, this is the one I feel the best about, just because of the struggles they've had against this team this year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I'm more lumping them together because I feel incredibly encouraged about both of these wins for a little bit different reasons, and the fact that they come on a back-to-back, shortly after the Cavs were struggling. And, we were talking about after that second loss to Houston and their one and only 3-game losing streak of the year, we were like, okay, there's 9 games to the All-Star break. Can we make one more push to make sure Boston and New York don't cut into this lead, right, by the time of the All-Star break?
Yeah.
And we look, and there were 9 games left, and I'm like, I'd love them to go 6-3. If they did 7-2, 8-1, even better. But if they could go 6-3, they should still have a 4-game or more lead in the East. Well, now we're 3 games in, they're 3-0. So, and they're up 5.5 games on Boston. And so they're doing exactly what they need to do on this kind of last little push before you get into the All-Star break. Although several of the Cavs won't be getting an All-Star break. We'll talk about that soon.
Yeah, I think, and realistically too, you never want to say this with the NBA, but the rest part of the schedule gets kind of easier, right? I mean, after this game against Dallas on Sunday, you've got a couple of games where, on paper, you feel pretty good about them winning. You feel pretty good about them winning every night, realistically, with that on paper.
Mhm.
But those are games you really feel comfortable that if you had to pick them, you feel like they're going to take care of business.
Yep, for sure. Super encouraged by this win, and super encouraged by the fact that, like, they're starting to click on all cylinders again. Like Garland, as we said, was, now that we're closing out the month, their best player in January. I don't even think it's debatable.
Yeah.
But now, just these last few games, you first started seeing Mitchell turn it around after a pretty rough stretch, one of the rougher stretches he's probably had in several years. And then the last two nights, you've seen Evan Mobley start to get his mojo back after a couple bad games and missing four games with injury. And at the same time, you're starting to get conscious. It's different guys because of, Wade Okoro and LeVert being out, but you're still getting high level contributions from the bench, most notably Ty Jerome. And so, like a lot to feel. I would say, Kessa, as bad as you felt after that Houston loss and the third loss in a row, you should feel that good now after these last 3 wins.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting contributions again up and down the roster. I mean, we are talking about all these guys played really well tonight. We haven't talked about Niang yet, and he was also really, really special tonight.
Mm-hmm.
This is just who they are, man. You're not going to keep them down long. I just really have this hard time look at like a 7-game set against anyone not named the Celtics or the Thunder that I think they'll lose, and we're way ahead of our skis on that. I'm well aware, but I just feel really comfortable with where this team is right now. Like we've talked about all year, just their ability to be successful without playing so many minutes. You got another glimpse of that tonight on a back-to-back. I mean, the second night of a back-to-back at that. This is where we're getting back to playing Cleveland Cavalier basketball, and us as fans and podcasters can just come on here and turn the mics on every night and just be stoked about what we're seeing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Great win. Great past couple of days. Great momentum. Like going into this last stretch for the All-Star break. And we can kind of turn the page there. We can come back and talk about the game if we want, but there's obviously some big news today in the fact that the All-Star reserves, and so therefore the full teams, were revealed. The Cavs, as we predicted last night, got 3. We already knew Donovan Mitchell was going to be a starter. Darius Garland and Evan Mobley was named his first All-Star game. So congrats, first of all, to those 2 guys. But before we talk about them, I want to talk about the guy who left off, Jarrett Allen. You can always get into picking hairs with snubs, and we'll talk about the whole team. And there's a few guys not named Jarrett Allen that people are really upset didn't make the teams. But from Jared's perspective, like I said, there was only 4 big men in the East who have an argument over him. And I think all of them, frankly, should have gone over him. And they're the 3 starting: Cat, Giannis, Tatum. And then I said, I'd probably put in Mobley ahead of Allen. And so I'm like, if they're going to put in a 5th big guy, it should be Jarrett Allen. Well, they didn't. Like the rest of the team is guards and small forwards. And so I guess that's the way they, kind of got around that. But yeah, I think Jared has played at an all-star level. He is just such a winning player. Like I don't care. Like he's one of those guys you appreciate so much more when you watch him every game versus like watching highlights and checking box scores and things like that. Like he plays so hard. He is Mr. Reliable. He's played every game. He plays 30 plus minutes a night. And while he doesn't have the offensive skills that a lot of people who get voted to All-Star game does, I think he makes All-Star level contributions to this Cavs team.
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, if you look at those guys, the other reserves besides Mobley, Pascal Siakam, which I don't have an issue with Pascal Siakam making the All-Star team. I hate that it was at the expense of Jarrett Allen not making it, but I do think he's had a really good year. And then Jaylen Brown, which you just kind of had to expect that. Not that he hasn't been good this year by any means, but I don't think I've really loved how he's played this year either, to be fair. So for Jarrett, I mean, like you said, just kind of the way that the things were picked with going to the small forward section of it, kind of puts him as a downfall, as a bummer with the front court mentality. But yeah, I really do think that he should have been there. they talked about tonight, where it was a lot of just like, you heard the broadcast tonight, Carter and Doherty saying like, we're not where we're at without him. Kenny Atkinson talked about it. It's been a lot of conversation about that. So yeah, man, I feel like for him, it's a bummer because I do think he would have made it. Now, I do think there's still a possibility he gets in there with anything that can happen these next couple of days, before these next couple weeks before the All-Star break. So I hate it for him, and I want to see him get there. He certainly earned it. He's had an awesome year, dude. He's been like one of the most fun guys to watch play basketball.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk about the whole All-Star rosters here, but let's stick to the Cavs first. We talked plenty about Donovan Mitchell. He's a starter. He's going to be there and everything. I want to talk about the two guys who found out today they're going to be All-Stars. We'll start with Evan Mobley. This is his first All-Star game. He is incredibly deserving. He became an All-Star because he kept and maybe even slightly improved his high level of defensive impact, to where the facts, however you want to rank him, he's one of the top defenders in the NBA, while developing on offense, particularly the things he did this year. He got more comfortable putting the ball on the floor, getting to the basket, more comfortable shooting enough threes to keep teams honest, and just more, frankly, more aggressive and more confidence and more like just knowing what he's going to do, having a plan on offensive end, and having counter moves to the way defense is playing him. I mean, I think it's incredibly well deserved. I think us big Cavs fans probably saw this coming over the last couple of years, and it's just great that it's here, and he certainly earned it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from preseason, you saw this was a different Evan Mobley. When you saw in the fast break, he was the trailer. He was the lead ball handler a lot in the fast break. He was bringing the ball up the floor. You mentioned, obviously, putting the ball on the deck and getting more comfortable attacking the paint off the dribble, becoming a more reliable three-point shooter, where he's still not shooting as many as we want him to, but I feel comfortable with him shooting threes now, I think. And, like we talked about Spencer Davies last week, he's one particular skill set away from being that next level, and that's just getting a better grip on ball handling. And I think that's going to happen. What he's done this year has been so awesome. I mean, I really do think he should be the defensive player of the year. I really think he has been that good. And you're seeing it on a nightly basis who he's guarding. Now we've talked about this a million times already, so I'm not going to get further into it. He's also the most improved player. He is the most improved player in basketball, and he should be recognized for that. But this has just been a great year for him, man. I'm super stoked. As we know, I've had a lot of Evan Mobley stock for a very long time, so I feel good that I can cash it in right now. A big win for me. So this rules, man. I'm so stoked for him and everything he's doing.
I'm stoked for him, and he got exactly what he deserved. And if we're being honest, just the three big guys that got ahead of him, forward and centers, they're three of the best players in the league this season, right? And having all NBA caliber seasons. Mobley is at present day a slight step behind them, but he has, the most room between what he is now and his ceiling of any of those guys. So I thought he was the fourth best big man in the East, and he was voted in, or he made the team as the fourth big man in the East. And I'm just super, super stoked for him. And I think this is the first of many for Evan. Yeah,
I could agree. He's going to get one of those. He's going to get some DPOYs. This is just the beginning, people. He is going to be here for a very long time.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's pivot to Darius Garland. Really well deserved by Darius. I said I'm at the point now where I think he has been the Cavs' most important player this season. I think he was flat out their best player in January, as we discussed. I think he has been their most consistent player throughout the year. I think he is. Well, I know he has stayed healthy. He's only missed a couple games the whole year, and I was on record saying like I actually thought he deserved to be a starter over Mitchell. I stand by that. But incredibly well deserved, and for Darius, he was an all-star once before in 2022, and then has had a couple adversity filled seasons, a lot of, tough injuries, things like that. And to have him bounce back and be playing the best ball of his career, to be honored with the all-star is also just awesome to see.
Yeah. Not just physically the things he had to go through, right? I mean, how many times do you think he heard like you and Donovan Mitchell can't play together, and they're both all-stars. Right. So that's really awesome for him. Just his ability to really handle a game. You talked about the points you just made, and you talked about with Keith Smith the other day, just about the fact that he's really become so well conditioned as well. Which is, I think, the thing I didn't really think about. And I've said in the past, I thought in the half court, he was the most fun player to watch play basketball. I think this year in general, he's been the player I've had the most fun watching, not just in the Cavs, but just in basketball, because of just how exciting he is, his ability to control a game, his ability to just kind of change the pace and everything like that. He's been awesome, man. So to see him get this honor for a second time in his best year, where you made the case he could have been a starter, and I think that if you put him against the guys who are starting, he definitely has an argument. So this has been great. I mean, to see the Cavs get recognized like this, I know the haters are going to say this is just like that Hawks team in 15, but this team is better than that Hawks team in 15.
Yeah, I think so. And this team versus that Hawks team, first of all, it's younger. It's a team full of guys who are just hitting their prime or are pre-prime right now. The Hawks team, I think that was more you struck oil by putting the right mix of established players together and everything. And nothing else. I actually really liked watching that team. So I don't say anything derogatory, but so anyway, all right, Tim, I'm going to put you on the spot, and I already have an answer to the question. So if you want a minute, I'll give my answer first, but we'll start in the East. And, you can't say someone's a snub unless you say they should make it over someone that did make it.
Oh,
who do you think it was? Maybe all of the guys who made it, the least deserving guy, or the guy you would, I guess take out if you're going to put Jared or somebody else in.
Oh, man. Okay, let me pull the rosters up again because I have not thought about this.
Well, I'll give you my answer while you're doing that. Then I think it should be Tyler Hero. And
okay, I was going to go this route as well. Okay,
so he's having a great season scoring the basketball. If we're being honest, his stats aren't all that different than any other season, and there's never been a swell of Tyler Hero should be an all-star. He's been healthier, so I'll give him that. But 24 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists on a team who's like a play-in team, as is. I think that's a very good season. I think that's more a guy on the wrong side of the bubble as far as making the all-star team.
Kevin, I agree, because Zach LaVine should have got that spot over him.
Well, we'll go there in a minute. We'll come back to snubs in a minute, but I'm gonna do the same thing for the West. Sorry, I got 50 tabs open, so I'm going back.
Well, you got to think now. Anthony Davis is probably out, so that spot's going to be taken by somebody.
Probably, yeah. But just performance, and again, I'll go again first. But if you had to remove one person on the West, or maybe the least deserving of anybody on the West, because we're going to talk about the snubs in a minute. Who do you think it would be on the West team?
I hate to say it, but I think it would be James Harden.
He was one of the couple that I was debating.
I didn't want to say Şengün because we already had people in our comments this week mad at us for talking bad about Şengün. Mm-hmm. So I didn't want to bring those people back.
Well, okay. I'm gonna bring them back because I'm gonna go with Şengün. 19 points, 5 assists. This is the classic. Houston's having such a good season, we have to put one of their guys on the All-Star team.
Yeah, for sure.
But Houston is so good because of the totality of their talent and not necessarily one guy being an all-star. I think Şengün's a very good player. I also think he's a very dirty player. But I do not think he is at the level of all-star. So if I was going to take, a snub and put them in, he would be the guy I remove. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's fair. My Harden thing was just that, are we sure he really deserves this? Because it's I understand he's the guy who's getting the ball the most for the Clippers, and the Clippers are having a better year than a lot of people anticipated. But are we sure that he deserves this spot? I'm not very high on James Harden. I think I haven't hid that, and I've given credit when credit's due, and he's been great. But and he has been really good this year. I'm not saying he hasn't by any means, but realistically, and I understand Luke is out, and he's not, with the injury, but I don't know if he's a guy that I'm oh yeah, all-star.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm with you. And there, especially in the West, well, actually in both conferences, some spots were open because some guys who would be all-stars have just unfortunately been hurt this year and missed enough
Yeah.
time that they couldn't get a nod. Luka's a great example of that. Ja Morant's another. And then over in the East, you have Embiid, Banchero, several, a few others I'm not thinking off the top of my head. But I'll stay in the West then.
Kyrie.
Yeah. So I'll stay in the West then. About if we were going to put one guy in that didn't get in, I'll give you mine first. So my heart says Norman Powell, just because I love a
He's been
guy
really good.
who just comes out of nowhere to have a career year when he has an opportunity that he's never had. I thought he was awesome, but I agree with the swelling about Sabonis missing the All-Star game again.
Me too.
And because he missed last year and then he was all NBA. And I think he missed the year before and he was either all NBA or just outside of the all NBA. And so the argument is, how can this guy continue to be an all NBA player, but never make an all-star game? And I get the criticisms of him. He's obviously, he struggles a little bit on the defensive end, but the impact he makes on an offense, the impact he makes, rebound the basketball, I think he would be the guy I would put in.
Okay, so I had him on my list as well, my quick thought. So you took that from me, and I just mentioned him. So if I'm going to take James Harden out, I would put Kyrie Irving in. And I'm not saying this because of the fact that he is a Cavs legend.
Mm-hmm.
He's realistically been really good this year. He has missed 10 games, so I'm sure that probably has been the thing that's been his demise for his team. But dude, 48% from the floor, 42% from three, 52% from 2%, 56% efficient field goal percentage, just under 90% from the free throw line, 24.2 points a game. And 10 games is a lot. He can only miss 5 more to still be qualified for All NBA. But he certainly has made a case for All NBA. And I get the Mavs have not been very good this year, but are we sure Harden's been better than Kyrie Irving this year?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think this stuff ends up in storylines a lot, because the Clippers were a story because with Kawhi not being available, they didn't bring back Paul George. They're like, this could end up being a team that is a play-in team or worse in the West, and then kind of he has led that team just through his playmaking and scoring and everything to be a surprise top 5, top 4 team, depending on where they are right now in the West. So I get it. I also don't totally disagree with you.
That's fair. Yeah.
So, all right, well, let's do the same exercise in the East, but I'm going to set you up a little bit. The East is where I think the biggest surprise snubs were. You brought up on the podcast last night that people thought LaMelo Ball should be starting the All-Star game. We didn't make the roster.
Right. Yeah.
So him, Tyrese Maxey, Trae Young, Tyrese Halliburton, Zach LaVine, big name guys that didn't make it. Jalen Johnson and Franz Wagner both didn't make it, but that is kind of might
Injury.
be partly because injuries. Jalen Johnson's injured now. Franz just came back from an injury, so more sticking with those guys. Or I mean, if there's somebody else, but LaMelo, Maxey, Young, Halliburton, LaVine, any of those jump out to you as I think that guy should have made it?
I do think Zach LaVine should have made it, and I know I'm probably on an island here.
You are, but please
Dude,
go for it.
I understand the Bulls suck. I'm not shying away from that. But all the complaints we've had about Zach LaVine throughout his career, and justified majority of them, he's been awesome. I mean, he's literally the only reason. Well, him and Vooch, the Bulls have 20 wins this year. Otherwise, they would be where they should be, which is our point all the time. But I mean, he's been tremendous. He's playing a different position he's played in years past. He hasn't played the 3 really since he got to Chicago his first year. Shooting 50% from the floor, shooting 45% from 3, 80% from the line. Also 24 points a game. Kev tied his career high right now for assists per game. He's been efficient, really efficiently scoring. And I know he's always going to be bad on defense, but this isn't the same thing when we talk about Donovan Mitchell stepping his defense up. Zach LaVine has stepped his defense up to where he's still extremely below average, but at least is trying.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just, hey, get me out of here. I want to go play somewhere else. And this is why I'm playing hard. But I do think he has earned the right to be considered an all-star, especially considering even though the Bulls stink and their front office is also awful. He is in a large market where he is the best player.
Yeah. I think that's a strong argument. And if I didn't say, I should have said, like, we're going to leave Jared Allen out of this because we're homers with Jared Allen.
Yeah.
And we can definitely make reasons that he should be it. But we're going to talk about kind of the other guys, of that list I gave you and looking at it. Like, for me, I went back and forth a little bit, but I'm going to say Tyrese Maxey. And this is my arguments because most people will say LaMelo and Trae Young should make it over him. And the other argument is Philadelphia has been a mess this year. They're 11th in the standings. I'm like, well, Atlanta's 9th and Charlotte's like 13th. So yeah. And so that argument kind of goes out the window. And I think Maxey is he's definitely the best defender. Not that he's a great defender. He's the best defender of those guys on that list.
Yes, absolutely.
He has had, you could almost argue he's had the worst situation to try and thrive in this year. And frankly, they might be eliminated from the playoffs by now if it wasn't for him. He's about the only good thing they have going now that Jared McCain, is out for the year. So if I had to go with somebody, I'd go with this. I'm pretty okay for the most part with the selections. I'm not totally surprised. I'm glad, just looking up and down the list. I'm super happy for Cade Cunningham. He deserves it. He has taken a huge leap this year. Very, very well deserved. And I mean, we didn't mention it, but it's gonna be Wemby's first All-Star game. So it would be a cool thing to see him. Obviously he's next according to everybody, and I and myself included. And so it'll be cool to see him kind of in this game for the first time.
We got to have some LeBron Wemby alley-oop kind of moment in this All-Star game. Somehow they ended up on the same team in that group of 4 teams, that dumb decision-making process. This is what happens when you don't have East versus West. You take moments like that away from us.
Yeah.
Can I ask you about one more player?
Sure.
To get your genuine thoughts on. This is not like an argument for here or there. I'm just really curious what you think about it. Devin Booker did not make the All-Star team.
Yeah, he hasn't had a good year. I mean, he is a really good player having a really bad year. He's having the opposite of the Olympic bump. Had the Olympic bump.
Same with Bam. I thought Bam was going to be so good this year.
There's an old, theory that when guys go and play in the Olympics, especially younger guys, they come back and have an even better season than they've had before. And it goes back to when LeBron and Dwayne Wade and Carmelo Anthony went to the Olympics in 2008 and saw, they saw Kobe and Kobe's work ethic and, some of the things that Kobe would do. And then they brought it in their own games. But anyway, Devin Booker, he came on too late. He's been really good about the last 2 or 3 weeks, but previous to that, he was shooting 40% from the floor. He frankly had a really rough first 2 to 3 months of the season. And so I think he's an all-star level talent. I just don't think he's having an all-star year this year. I
agree with you. My conversation was more, are you surprised because he is such a popular name?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know, but I actually think they did a pretty good job of getting it right. Guys like Jaren Jackson Jr. Absolutely deserves to be there.
1,000%.
The guy called All-Star Jalen Williams, to differentiate him from his teammate, is now an All-Star and is incredibly deserving. So I actually think, and the reserves are voted in by the players and coaches, and media has a small percentage of that. And I actually think they did, for the most part, a really good job. You're always going to be able to make an argument for somebody not making it, but I'm pretty satisfied with these lists. I'm most happy about some of the guys who aren't the big household names, even our Cavs, that did get recognized in spite of that.
Yeah, I really think that big picture, they did a great job. I do have my arguments for guys against, like you said, but like you said, it's splitting hairs. It is what it is. So,
yeah, no, for sure. All right, well, we will quickly preview the next game. They do not play again until Sunday at Dallas. I was actually trying to pull up some Dallas stats. You talked about Kyrie having another fantastic season, and certainly always a challenge for the Cavs. But anything else you in particular you see in this game that you're looking out for?
So Dallas of late has played really good offense. I mean, realistically, the whole year they've been awesome. They're 9th in the league. They're 7th in the league in offensive rating. They're very physical. They're very, they use a full shot clock. Where we talked about last night, Cleveland made Miami use the full shot clock. Dallas is more than willing to use the full shot clock, and to get efficient shots. You're kind of seeing like Kyrie, obviously, Klay Thompson's been up and down, but they just are a good basketball team. And the good news for Cleveland is they're without obviously Luka, so that helps a bit. But this is a team that I don't know. I just have a hard time ever counting them out. 26 and 22 isn't all that it's attractive. I agree, especially they're 8th in the West. But they are, it's hard to ever bet against Kyrie Irving in Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, as we've seen, as history says. And so, I know you hate me for bringing this up, but Najee Marshall's been a really nice piece for them when he's played, when he's not getting suspended for fighting people. So this is going to be really interesting to see what is it going to be like, because I assume that Najee's kind of becoming that guy that comes off the bench and guards your best player. So is he in, we know Kyrie is not the one who's super excited about playing defense all the time. It's only certain matchups that he is. So I assume that Marshall and Thompson, who is nowhere near the defender he obviously was after all his injuries, are going to be kind of really try to take some shots at getting guys like Strus and getting guys like Mitchell off their spots. So I'm really curious to see how Cleveland and Kenny and staff really kind of try to play the chess match against them in that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Kyrie is one of my favorite players ever to watch, just from a skill standpoint. So you're not going to catch me saying too many bad words about him. That said, looking at the Dallas,
you and Uncle Drew on Blu-ray,
they're looking at the Dallas team overall. Obviously, the big thing, Luka still being out, that's a huge disadvantage. He got hurt just before the last time. Yeah, the Cavs played him. Derek Lively is out. I will say, I've always liked Daniel Gafford, and he has really stepped up his play the last few games since that happened. He's a beast inside, but I do think this is a game between Dallas missing their star and missing some of their depth. The Cavs getting 2 days off between games. I'd love to see them keep this momentum rolling, get another win on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I know we're a little over time, but I want to show off something real quick before we get out of here. I didn't know if you had seen this, so I had to share my screen real quick. This is coming up for the Celtics game. This is the Cavaliers giveaway, the stadium giveaway. It's the Donovan Mitchell bobblehead. And this is the coolest freaking bobblehead I think I've ever seen. So it's his dunk from the Magic series, where he's got it he's basically doing the Vince Carter arm in the rim.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I think I need one.
Very cool. So if you're on the fence about going to the game Tuesday nights, now you got even more reason to go. So, all righty, we're over time. Let's wrap it up there. Thanks everybody for hanging out and listening, watching, however you're seeing us. The Block the Shot to Stop podcast. If you are checking us out, we'd love for you to, subscribe, follow our show on all the social media outlets. As always, want to thank Blue Wire for sponsor podcast, letting us do this. And until Sunday, everyone, enjoy your couple days off. And as always,
go Cavs.